for all of you, I am pumped up. I'm excited because today we have with us Hall of Fame hopeful Billy Wagner is on the show with us. Billy, let's bring you in and thank you for joining us on the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I wouldn't miss it for anything.
Dude, really, really appreciate it. I just got those out there. It's 10th year on the ballot. I know you've probably been talking through your brain about this thing, but it's only fitting that you're making it the 10th year last year, so you're basically closing out the ballot, and it's kind of fitting, right?
Well, it's nerve wracking. Yeah, I guess
Oh, yeah.
I guess we can say that. Yeah, that's how it goes. But yeah, it's a grind. It's been 16 years to play was a grind going through it. Now 10 years trying to get into this elite club has been a grind.
I am so excited that we are hosting a show named Closers, and we actually have a good closer on once for once. We don't have some mediocre,
You're right there,
you know,
James. Love it.
but Bill, we talked about it. The fact that it might take you 10 chances to get into the Hall of Fame to me is ridiculous. I can't name very many closers that are better than you, maybe on one hand. But do you think that closers and relief pitchers just don't get the respect that they deserve?
I mean, the game's so hard, and I think it's such small samples, and yeah, I mean they do. I mean it's a tough role. I don't think people understand. I think the thing that always irritates me is everybody's talking about playoffs. Not a lot of us get to the playoffs, and not a lot of you get a chance to even pitch in the playoffs or being a situational game in the playoffs. And for me, I didn't I didn't even have a save opportunity to my second or third playoff game. So I mean, it was those things are we're only looking at elite closers that have been in the playoffs. So how many closers have actually been hurt and not even pitched in the playoffs and gotten to the setup man is closing in the playoffs. When John Wetland was the closer with the Yankees, Mariano was the setup man. So I tell you, it's a tough role. I think what makes closers so unique is the ability to go out there night after night and then have a bad week and still continue to go out there night after night. So championships are won by teams, not individuals. And so, but you can't get there unless individuals do what they're supposed to do.
Obviously there's guys, and we all know the names. Like when you're talking about Goose and Eck and Mariano, those guys have obviously made it in the Hall of Fame. But now you got guys like Lee Hoffman. It's starting to change a little bit about closers, right? That mindset that James, some of the writers start viewing it. Do you think it's the analytics changing it because the value of that relief pitcher has risen in the game, or do you think it's just that the guys that writers are starting to see just that closers, like there's a certain number that closers have to hit, and they're starting to figure that out?
I don't know if they had a number. When Goose and Suter and Raleigh and these guys were going through it, I don't think there was a specific number for what made these guys so unique. I know they used Hall of Fame and but the body of their work was supposedly their longevity, their numbers were what the criteria. The playoffs things, championships like that are. I think the cherry on the top. I think, today's guys, how they're used and how we were used when we were playing were so different than Raleigh and these guys. They would pitch 3-4 innings and then, they have, 3-4 days off, for guys when La Russa started using Eck as a one inning type guy. Then it just changed how often we could pitch. So you're still getting the same innings. You just don't have the days off. And so, starters were used different, the game. And that's what, I think changes, we're not supposed to be compared to our prior era, which we
Yeah.
are because we're biased. But I mean, I think it's just when you look at numbers on a whole and how you're used, I mean, you shouldn't look at the guys in our era the same way you look at the guys in this era ahead. Because I mean, I don't know how you'll make a case for a closer moving forward, or a starter. I mean, innings, appearances, everybody's used. You got guys who are called openers now. I
Right.
mean, I mean, how are we gonna do this now? I mean, everybody has a role to play. Closers just happen to be at the end of the game, and it was the most important 3 outs in the game. Any way you want to cut it, if you can't get those 3 outs, you usually can't win.
What do you think about the way they're treating pitchers these days? You mentioned that they have openers, they bring in closers for just 1 inning. Do you think we're going backwards, making it more specialized, or should pitchers be able to get in any situation and go for longer than an inning?
Well, the game has become all about metrics and numbers and ways to strategize a little different than we did. Your starters were meant to go complete games. I mean, ask Nolan, ask Bob Gibson, ask these guys. They didn't look for a Billy Wagner in the bullpen. They were, hey, I got this. And
they were the Billy Wagner.
Yeah, absolutely. They were the dudes. And so now you sit there and it started to change a little bit. And I mean, Larry Durker helped me to get to where I'm at today by really pushing his starters to go as long as he could, which will allow me or a setup guy not have to fill in an extra inning here and there. And so it did make it easier. But now I just, the value of a pitcher per se is skewed, the abilities of today's players are much, I think on a whole, their abilities, their craft is completely 100 times better than what it was. I think every guy is just a tremendous athlete, the hitters and everything. What I see is different is just the how you have to go about pitching. I mean, could we honestly say any of us would be as good as we were today if we had to pitch in a strike zone that actually is monitored? I mean, and think about it, Tony Gwynn and guys like that hitting when all of a sudden you have to throw a strike. You don't get a ball off. Holy God, he'd have hit 500. George
They were
Brett.
the monitors.
Oh, my God, it would have been unbelievable. And so, in so many things, the game has gotten a lot tougher, but it has you've changed how you make a pitcher pitch. Their stuff's great, but, probably 50% of the time they're just chucking it down the middle and letting their stuff work and playing the percentages of the guy getting out.
Yeah, so you started mentioning stuff, which is obviously when you stepped on the scene, right? When you first started pitching, stuff is exactly the way me watching you was how I described. That's different. It's just stuff. You're like, that's unhittable type of stuff. It's pretty cool. I saw your interview you did when you went back to the Mets this year. And you're talking about, because people kind of try to compare like Mariano to you and stuff like that. It's not, there's no comparison. He did it one way, you did it another way, which is awesome. Like I emulated you. I'd watch people like, oh, watch Mariano. I'm like, I can watch his mindset. I can't watch his stuff because that's not me. I watched you. You changed the game, right? So you and power stuff. Like people used to have power stuff, but there became a different explosive type of stuff. Upper of the zone, fastball, riding that fastball up in the zone. Do you feel at the time, do you feel like you were changing the game? And do you look at it now and say like, dude, like upper part of the zone, hard fastball with honestly, if we had the metrics, right, we know it would be a high spin rate with upper vertical approach angle,
right.
high, it'd be all that stuff, and people would be talking about it all through there. At the end of the day, we talked about it as a hard fastball up in the zone that you couldn't hit, right? We all knew it.
Yeah, and I think there's deception too. I'm throwing right out of my chest or right at my ear. I think that's
right.
the uniqueness
like,
too.
Right
it
in front of you.
It's bows and arrows, buddy. And so I think that's what made everything. I mean, when you look at guys like Trevor and Mo and Suter and Gossage, they all had a signature pitch, no different than me. This is what we brought to the table, and win and lose. That's how you're going to do it. And so, changing the game, it was still the mentality of a Goose Gossage walking out there and daring you to hit that fastball. And I didn't have a very good breaking ball. It was just good enough because everybody had to respect the fastball because I threw up and in, I threw down the way, I threw in all the quadrants using my fastball as good as I could, but. The breaking ball was just enough and had enough efficiency to it that I could go out there and use it. But, these guys today, you go out there and watch the Cleveland closer, you watch Kimbrel, you watch these. I mean, they pitch. It's like watching a surgeon. These guys are phenomenal. They don't have to. Their mentalities, they're not mentality like a goose gossage. They're not meant like that. But yeah, it's the game is still really, really great between the lines. It's all the things that we're measuring has gotten complicated because now where does the win mean more? Because the winning is what you really get paid for, and your numbers are bipartisan of going out to win. And so when you go out there and the velocity, if you can't throw to corners or you can't pitch in and out and you can't do these things, it doesn't matter what your stuff is. But in that day and age, I thought, it was just, you knew you had to know the umpires more than you had to know the actual strike zone, like now.
When you made the show, I'm assuming that you were more of a thrower than a pitcher, like most young pitchers. When did you get comfortable enough to say, you know what, I'm no longer a thrower, now I'm a pitcher? How long did it take for you?
Well, about 16 years. I think that was some of the I think later in my career, obviously, I got better and efficient. I think I always wanted to cut down my walks and things like that. But what made me was being effectively wild. And so if you dug in, you might get one under your neck, and not even intentional. And having arm side run and just something people hadn't seen it before. So, there was some uniqueness to what I bring. But I thought probably, I didn't really get comfortable like saying, hey, I've got this. I mean, I knew what I had to do. I knew how to get 3 outs. I knew, what it was about. But I don't know if I ever got comfortable saying that, this is easy or I can just do this.
So when did you actually get comfortable making 3 outs, right? So you came up through the minors as a starter, right? And you never had a game finished until you're stepping into the big leagues. Totally different, like completely. People think it's easy. Totally different mindset, totally different attitude. When did the 3 outs become the most important 3 outs? Like, how did that transition happen?
When they keep putting you out there, that's when it really starts to kind of like, hey, this is meaningful. It's one thing to come in with a 4 or 5 run lead. It really is, because you're like, oh, you're the closer. You can come in. Even a 3-run lead's a little different than a 2-1 because you're a bloop and a blast, or you're a walk and a home run. It's just a million things that could go on. And the mindset of hitters change from 5 to 4 to 3 to 2-run leads, even 1-run leads. So, for me, the more I kept going out there, they were going to keep doing this. I mean, I was actually called up in '96 to make a start. I was supposed to start, and Greg Swindell had been released so that I could make a start. Donnie Wall, one of my closest friends, was 4-0 and was just dealing, just a great pitcher. He goes out there and he's pitching, and they wanted to give me an extra day, and so he slid into that. But at that time, our closer Todd Jones had gotten hurt his shoulder or something like that, and they go, hey, let's get him an inning here and stuff. All of a sudden, the numbers. All of a sudden, they're seeing the radar numbers, and they go, oh, that's new. We like that. Yeah, that works. And so all of a sudden, that was when everything started, because now everybody's like, oh, this kid throws hard. And I think that's, what kind of threw me into that closer role, not because I couldn't be a starter. It was just the fact that this is what we're dealing with. I would have not probably changed a thing as a starter until I'd gotten down the road, because I was going to throw hard for as long as I could throw hard and mix in a breaking ball and a changeup the whole time. That was how it was going to be. It was going to be 90% fastballs until I got older. But, the closing thing was just, a lucky draw where an injury and a guy pitching well gave me that opportunity.
Bill, you had a lot of stops in your career. You're with the Mets, the Phillies, the Braves, the Houston. Where was your favorite place?
There was a couple. I think what, stands out, I mean, learning how to mature as a player takes stops and longevity. I think when I first went to Philly, it was like a complete newness to the game, because I'd never been in an environment in my home, I guess, field that was so just passionate. And, I'd never seen that, because I'd come in Houston, didn't have the media. Now you go to Philly, and I mean, good wasn't good enough. And then my next stop, I go to New York, and that's a whole different beast. But if you want to be great, you want to have a chance to go home, you got to go to New York. You have to go play in the big markets and deal with that pressure. And then, so those stops, I mean, there was parts of the Philadelphia, the New York, Boston, and Atlanta that I just really love. Now, I'm always going to be biased to Atlanta because my family, we all grew up watching the Braves, and my grandparents, that was actually about the only station they could get at times at TBS and to watch, or WGNs. And so that's me. So we've been growing up, and Dale Murphy was my favorite player. And so, I was biased. And so when I had a chance to go to Atlanta, that was a no-brainer. But I think every place there had that special moments and stuff like that. You had your special moments, and you had some regrets that you wish you could have done better. I mean, those were all the athletes, I think.
Let's call it what it is, though. If you make the Hall of Fame, you're going to go in as a Met, because you wouldn't do that to me. You wouldn't go in as a Philly or a Brave to piss me off, would you?
Oh my gosh, I don't even think I have a choice. I think the only choice I have is to go in as nothing. So I think you have to go in as Astro. So I don't know.
I know, I'm teasing you, Bill.
It's got to be an Astro. Just a plain fact. And I wanted to talk about this.
But I will say the Mets have really taken care of me. I will say that they have all the places. They really, I get more calls from Jay Horowitz and stuff about doing stuff. I mean, Jay is the
That's a name.
Greatest. Oh, he's the great. Everybody knows Jay, but he's the greatest, PR guy and he probably does more stuff for me. He's talked to me more about the Hall of Fame than anybody. It's unbelievable.
Oh my God, the best Jay Horowitz story I had was when I was with him. One of the players had posted a picture online of them with a gun. And instead of deleting the picture, he went on and retweeted the picture. And so the whole world then saw the picture that only a couple people had seen. Now he retweeted it to the world. And it's like, Jay, that's just so absolute gold. But the Astros,
for those of you out there who don't know who Jay Horowitz is, Jay Horowitz was the head of PR for the New York Mets for many, many years. For guys like us, we know who Jay is, but some of the viewers won't know who he is.
Jay, one of the best, absolute best, just pure,
absolutely
just great. I grew up in Houston a little bit, right? When I went to Rice and that
right.
02, 03. Sitting there watching the Astros, and pretty cool teams, some pretty great teams actually. That 03 team, that bullpen, Dotel, you. Did you know how special it was at the time? Like, when you're sitting there and you're sitting in the ninth, you're like, that game gets the 6. Like, it's just over.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, I don't think people realized that was like that whole time you had 3 closers. That's when you had, and it fit real well because there was nobody, and Dotel wasn't selfish, Lidge wasn't selfish, and because the thing, and like we talked about it earlier in that year, and I said, because everybody's talking about these guys and having to worry about younger guys. I said, the only reason I have to worry is if I'm not doing my job. If I'm doing my job, I don't have to. And they were a huge push because they would go out, punch out 3 just as easy. And so you had to keep up with the Joneses. And I mean, that dude, they were. And Dotel was funky with his arm action, throwing 95, and then Lidge was just ridiculous. His stuff was so good. People, I mean, he was so good. He was so much fun. He made it look so easy.
It was like 97 with a slider out of hell.
Oh my gosh! I mean, so for me, I was a little naive because I was like, well, I'm still doing my job and I'm doing good. And the very next year I get traded. And you're like, what? And so, but look back and you're going, well, I've got Lidge and I don't have to pay him as much in Dotel. And, those are things that, as a young player, you don't realize as much. But I mean, when we stepped in there, and I tell you, there's also, we had some bullpens where you had those 3 guys, Mike Jackson, you had him, you had Flash Gordon.
That's right.
That, and who am I? I'm missing
Puffer
Mike
was there
Williams.
a little bit.
Yeah, Puff. I mean, and Ricky Stone. I mean, you had guys, and with Jay Powell and guys like that. You could roll out some thunder against some people if you wanted to go 4 innings and turn it over to the bullpens. You could, and it was a dangerous scene.
All right, fill in the blanks for me. Billy Wagner is on the mound, and This is the player that I don't want to see.
I was going to ask.
Miguel Olivo.
Right. Just the most randoms.
Nobody, everybody thinks that. Everybody's like, really? I'm like, yeah. I mean, you give me, oh my God! But I'm gonna tell you, I couldn't get him out, and it would be comical. He would walk up, and you could just, he knew it, and I knew it. I mean, you're just like this. I felt like, hey, let me chuck this over into the, left center, right center, be done with this. I mean, he hit a 3-footer, beat it out, hit a home run. I mean, anything's happened. And, he's a Gold Glove boxer, too. Because I remember somebody saying, you know what, you need to knock him down. I said, the hell I will. I said, that guy comes out there, I'm getting my ass kicked. I said, I will fight anybody besides that dude. Because that dude right there, and he knew it. Because I remember we would walk by and I'd go, yep, at least get one hit tonight. I mean, it was just one of those guys. But I mean, it didn't matter what you threw. I've thrown some of the best pitches, some of the worst pitches, and I must look like a beach ball coming up there.
Dude, it's so funny because there's guys like that. Miguel Oliva for you. There was a longer list for me, but like Mark Loretta or like guys like that. Like you're just sitting there, like I don't want like anybody but him, and it's like it's just you just can't. It's to beat them, and it just for some reason they see your ball. And here's a guy that you faced. I'm sure you faced. I actually haven't looked it up. I'm going to look it up right now. Bonds, is he a Hall of Famer?
Absolutely, hands down. You know what? In the day and age where we're not really holding people accountable, and I don't, am I suspicious? Of course. But do I know? No, I don't. But I tell you, what I like is that if he did, he had to take it because he had to play against me. He had to beat me. He had to do those.
Like that.
I don't have a problem. Playing in that steroid era really made it more beneficial for me, and even a bigger case for the Hall of Fame for me, that I had to play against all these guys that have tested and are speculated to have taken steroids. And you know what? They had to do that because they had to beat people like me. And so, Barry Bonds is the best player ever to play the game. I don't care what he took. I mean, he could. If you messed up on the pitch, he'd get you, and I don't care what that is. I mean, that was impressive. He's the most impressive player I've ever played against.
I got it. 1 for 4 with a homer. Got him. That's it's a good list to be on, though. I'll say this.
He got me. I think he got me the last time I faced him, and it was one of those. It was a weird. I'd faced him 12, 14 times, and we had 2 outs. And there was a ground. We're in PNC, or is it PNC or Pac-Bell, wherever it is. Ball's hit to David Wright, third base, throws it up into the cheap seats. And here's what you hear now coming in, Barry Bonds. So I end up facing Barry. I'm like, shit. And so I'm pumping. And me and Barry had a great relationship. I enjoyed it. I didn't fear facing him. I didn't worry about it. And I think it was a 2-2 count. I threw a fastball. I mean, it's up and away, 99 up and away. And he backsides me, hits it in about the third row. He runs around. And after the game, he's absolutely, I couldn't ask for more because we had talked about it because I always challenged him. He would laugh if I threw a breaking ball. He used to look at me and tell me how bad it was, and I would just shake my head like, you're right. But if I don't throw this, we just want to add to the excitement. But I remember striking him out one time in Houston, and to end the game, and I get into the locker room. He's calling me, he goes, you mother, if you ever. He's talking about how hard I was throwing. He's like, if you ever throw anything under that to anybody else, I said, Barry, you're the A+ player. I'm only going to give you the A+ stuff. Why am I giving the B player the A+? And he looks at me and goes, fair. And that, but he was. I enjoyed facing him just because it was like that bully in the room. I mean, the guy that was intimidating to me was McGuire. That guy looked like he swung a toothpick, and he hogged that whole batter's box. I was like, holy God, that was impressive. So, but Barry's my favorite. He will always be one of the greatest players, and he should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, his smile and stuff, his joy. He loved the game. I think a lot of people think he probably hated the game. He loved the game and loved the competition, and like on all sides of it, on and off the field. But Miguel Oliva, yeah, 8 for 12 with the 2 home runs, had the most home runs, tied for the most home runs you'd ever given up.
Oh yeah, he loved it. That dude would make sure I was plush, buddy. He had food for me. He made sure there was a limousine to bring me to the field.
Got you the field.
Hey baby, he's high fiving. We come in. Oh, you look great today. Oh, I mean, he was great though. I mean, you always have those guys, and I mean, the guys that probably don't get the most kudos, but I mean, Juan Pierre. Holy cow, that guy sucked a face. He was a nightmare. David Eckstein. I mean, you're 12 pitches in before you, and you got to face the dude behind him. Oh, I hated that. I'd be like, man, can you just hit this ground ball? Can you just, because you're not getting to pop up, and that guy knew how to rise to the occasion. And so, Juan Pierre's and guys like that, Mark Loretta's coming in. They were professional hitters who knew how to do it, and probably don't get all the kudos, but my gosh, they were the absolute glue to most teams.
Billy, who are the guys that you like watching in today's game? Whether give me one hitter and one pitcher that you really enjoy watching.
Goodness sakes. Well, I like watching Will Wagner hit. I'm a big fan of him. Watching him.
He's not bad.
Kind of a fan.
I'm a big fan of watching him.
Billy's son, for those of you who don't know, who plays for the Blue Jays, the team that David has his shirt on today.
Being biased as a pitcher, I do like watching Garrett Cole. I do like guys who have that stuff quality, who doesn't back down. I like watching Garrett. What
do you think of Skeens?
Well, he's a different beast. He is a different beast. I mean, he's. I mean, right now he's just too good. I mean, his stuff. It's like watching John Smoltz young again. I mean, his stuff is John Smoltz all over, and he's very calm, relaxing, and he just knows he's a dude. That's what's really impressive and stuff. I do like watching him. I definitely will turn in a game to watch him. The other hitter I like watching is Vlad. Vlad has impressed me more and more as I've gotten to watch him because I'm watching Toronto. But him, there are quite a few guys that, and Altuve is fun to watch. But and I know this is terrible, and all hitters in the world are going to hate me, even my son. But the strike zone's so different now. I mean, you literally don't get away with a ball. I mean, if it is a ball, it's one of those balls that we used to get away with when we were playing, a ball off. And as a big league hitter, you're so big and strong. And I mean, you got triple dip bats and you're hitting off of rock flights. I mean, you'd think hitters were going to be a little bit better. I know the pitchers are better and their stuff's better, but the zone's so much more condensed. And, you would think because of just how well they, the game was played when we played, and listen to my son, he tells me all the time I'm full of it. But, and that tells you how hard this game is, that guys with, as much as they've condensed the strike zones and stuff like this, you're still not going to get guys who are going to hit 400 like Ted Williams.
Yeah, it's incredible. The game's definitely changing, but it's your son's getting a good start in it. The ballot, the 2025 Hall of Fame ballot, make an argument for someone on that ballot who deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Andrew Jones.
Yes.
Smoltz, Glavine, and Maddox do not have the numbers or the championships, divisional championships, if that guy's not in the outfield. And we played against him quite a bit when we were in the playoffs, and that guy robbed more hits. He made more plays, and his first, from when he stepped in at 19 to probably 29, he was probably the best player. You could argue the best players. I mean, he changed everything. I mean, he took hits. Every hit was so, it was just tough to do. I mean, it was unbelievable how well their defense was with him out there. And I mean, when you have that guy running around the outfield, it's like having Devon White out there. I mean, the ball goes in there and he hits an out. And so I just think, and his offensive numbers, he was a threat. He was a big threat too. But I think I just think that his numbers offensively and defensively. He should have been in the Hall of Fame a long time ago. I just don't think people understand the value of having somebody as good as him. And he could steal a base. And he could, and he was asked when he moved on from Atlanta to be a different player and, to be more of a power guy. And so, that changed him a little bit. But as you get older, your game changes. But he was still just, to this day, I think he's probably the greatest center fielder I've ever seen.
I'm curious about your thoughts about Francisco Rodriguez, another fellow closer who is not getting the love that he deserves early on in his balloting.
Yeah, that's a tough one because I think he is definitely quality. He's won a championship. He's been the best closer for a long time, and you know how politics plays this sport. That's the only reason why he's not in. I think the criteria they talk about is off the field and things like that. And that's unfortunate because, for him, I was a big fan of him. He was just as dominant as anything I've ever seen, especially when he was with the Angels. It was game over when he rolled out there. He was, and people knew it. And I think that's why when I went down and the Mets brought him over, I thought, we all thought that was a great move. So, I think that he should be getting more love. I don't know why that is, but, it makes you wonder, if I don't make it, Frank falls off. What happens to Kimbrel and some of these other guys as you move on? But there's so many guys on that list. You don't get on that list unless you put in some serious time. And it's hard to tell what people are looking for anymore.
It's hard just getting on the ballot. David Ardsma and we used to joke a long time ago where he just fell short of the service time required to get onto the ballot, and we were going to bribe one of the writers just to get him one vote. It's difficult, like you said, just to get on there.
It is, and you look at that list of guys that are on the list and got 10 years. You got to have those types of years, and you got to be good above average on that list too. You go down through that and you can think of every moment that these guys had in their career that set them apart. And it's a tough gig when you get 10 votes. Because on there you're like, yeah, that guy's good, that good. Now as a writer, you're scheming, trying to go, well, when do I give this guy the vote? How do I keep this guy on? I like this guy, and there is something to this. So, for guys like me, I remember when I first went on the ballot, I was happy that what I got. But people goes, hey, it's going to be a long road. And, a lot of the things that happened to me this year will, reflect how, Kenley Jansen, Kimbrel, and some of these other closers are viewed. Some people, may see it different, but I think a Johnny Franco should have been given more kudos and probably should be in the Hall of Fame. Longevity and numbers and dominance. Those things are all done in different ways. I dominated in a different way than Mariano. Mariano dominated different than Trevor. And when you look, and Suter and Gossage and Raleigh and all these guys were so much different than everyone. That's what made us all unique. And so when you put us all in that group, it's a very short group.
Yeah, we talked to LaTroy about this. He got on the ballot his year after the 4 years after he retired, and a writer had gone out of his way to make sure he understood how it was. Not the 10 years isn't the qualifier. It's even above that, the qualifier to even be on the ballot, and how much of an honor it is just to even have your name on the ballot, above and beyond just even the service time and all that stuff. And it was pretty cool. It's pretty touching to hear that being said. All right, I got two more for you. I got to ask one thing I've always wondered. In 2008, when you were on the Mets, you made the comment early in the season about the clubhouse.
Right.
And the guys weren't there. You didn't even pitch in the game. I still can't imagine any reporters coming up to me after a game I didn't even play and had nothing going on and asking me about the game. And they're not here. Big shock was the comment, right? Basically being shocker that they're not here to do it. Carlos Beltran was one of those guys you might have been alluding to. Was the air pretty little stiff the next day in the clubhouse? Did you guys clear that?
Oh yeah. There was a lot. And and the funny thing is, if you've been in if you've been in the Mets locker room, the pitchers are on one side and the hitters are on the other. And so they come in and they were going, there's no hitters here. The only hitters that were there that day was that were out there by their locker was David Wright. And they said something, and I said, well, that's a shock. And I wasn't pointing at anybody. I just pointed at where the hitters are. And so that became, and welcome to New York. Welcome to New York. You better. And that was, now all of a sudden it's turned into these oh, you're calling out these guys. It wasn't calling these guys out. I mean, it was just, you know what? When Billy Wagner gets his ass kicked, Billy Wagner standing in his locker. And I've had that. I think I've blown 80, 90 saves, and 80, 90 times I didn't walk out and go, I've got other stuff to do. I did what I had to do. I took my beatings and I held myself accountable because I have other people other than just my fans to hold accountable. How my kids see me every day, and I didn't handle it right all the time by no means, but I was there every day to take that beating. And so, I wasn't calling my teammates out. I was just saying, hey, that's a shocker that they have been there, because for the most part they are. I mean, the Delgados, the Beltrons, these guys, Church was on that team. He played in that game. I mean, those things came back because those are things that, for me, people see me as a different person. They're like, oh my God, he's such a bad. No, it wasn't trying to be a bad, an asshole in the locker room. It was just, what, we talk a different way when you're in the dugout and in the locker room and stuff. And it's being accountable is a big thing, and that is coming every day. And when that group, as good as we have been, that was a shocker.
It's easy to stand in front of the camera when you're doing great, right? It's really easy to put a big smile on your face and say, look at this guy. Like, I remember my first game in the big leagues, I got the win. I don't know how. Some reliever coming in fourth inning. I don't know what the hell happened. Second game was against Trevor in his return and Petco Park's opener, and I gave up the save. I blew it in my second game of my career. First thing I think is Matt Hurd just said, hey, get in front of that camera and own it. Hey, like the part you played, own it, but with respect to yourself too, like you're still good. Like you just and that changed my life. Like changed that view of it, like own it, and then when you're great, give the credit. And it was it's a lot easier. It's really easy.
Well, the best advice I got was from Xavier Hernandez, and I came up to the big leagues in the Stick in '96, and they pretty much said I was going to be the closer, and Xavier Hernandez goes, I'll be at your locker after every game with a beer that you pitched, a beer, a water, and a towel. He goes, when we win, it's us and we. When we lose, it's I and me. And he stood there and he said that. And I mean, you can ask all the reporters in Houston, they would sit there. And I mean, Xavier Hernandez sit there. And I mean, I did every interview, I did everything. And it was always, that's the way you play the game. That's what it's truly about, because it's not, for us all to be champions, we all have individual selfish things that has to happen in a team setting. But you know what? Of course, Billy Wagner wants to go out and punch out three guys every single time, because you know what happens when I do? We win. That's the selfishness that you get to have. But there's also knowing that, when giving up a single on that guy scoring isn't as big a deal, even though you don't want to give up a run, knowing the situation. And so, those are all growing and accountable types of things that, and what people didn't realize, how many times you give up a run that was meaningless, and people go, you gave up a run right there, yeah. And you're like, yeah, that was my 9th out of 70 innings. I mean, it's so, you can never be good enough. And, and I tell you, when you go to New York and you go, I'm going to challenge this system, going to New York and across the streets, Mariano, you're dealing, you know what you're getting into, and you know that it doesn't matter what you think. Mariano's the greatest closer ever.
Yes, easy, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's you give up it's the thing about understanding the situation. I think this is one of those things that's missed in baseball that today and age, especially with the analytics, is if you don't have your best pitch every single time, then it's no good. And then we're forgetting how to pitch and how to get outs and how to get your outs and all that stuff. And John Wetland, you mentioned him earlier.
Yeah.
The greatest things he ever said to me is the moment I got that closing role in Seattle, he goes, it doesn't matter what the hell you do. If you're shaking hands, you did your job. He goes, don't care about how it looks. Shake hands. And we're having beers afterwards. We're having a great day.
Mm-hmm.
Most important question that we had this entire time. You've been on for 35, 40 minutes. Dude, this is absolutely incredible, first of all. I want to thank you for being on. But last question, the most important question, what is your outlook for the 2025 Mavericks?
Well, we should be pretty good, but we're picking fights with some big old bullies this year. So we head down. Yeah, we head down, and we're going to play Tampa Jesuit, and then Stoneman Douglas, and North Broward Prep, and then West Broward, and so, and then we come back home after a week, and we play the top ranked teams out of DC and Georgetown Prep, and so yeah, we'll play 45 games, and we go out there and. The kids are great. I love coaching high school. I think it's the biggest blessing in the world to really get to enjoy watching somebody's success and their growth through their times in high school and being able to be a sounding board. But yeah, we should be okay, but we're going to have to play really well.
Billy, we can't thank you enough for having you on. You've been awesome. And in fact, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to step aside. Since the show is called Closers, I'm going to let you and David be the new hosts of Closers. I'm just going to be behind the scenes collecting the money.
Oh, I don't know. I'm more of a face guy than I am anything else. So, but I appreciate that.
Hey, thank you again for coming on, man. Really, really, really appreciate it. Best of luck with the Hall of Fame, but it doesn't matter. One of the most important things you said is about your family, and that's all that matters. And the Hall of Fame is the icing on the cake.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you guys having me. It's also, to go on a show that's called Closer, it's always just an honor.
Thanks, Billy. You're the best.
Thanks, guys. Y'all have a good one.